I formed the Leaders Club back in 2008 with the sole idea of bringing great minds together. I was going through a very difficult time with the business, which was exacerbated by the huge financial crash. I reflected on the loneliness of leadership and whether it was possible to bring together an eclectic group of people, all with leadership experience, to compare and contrast the challenges and see if there was a way we could learn from each other and help those following in our footsteps. Out of that, the Leaders Club was born, and how it has grown. Here we are in 2026, approaching our 400th event, of which 250 have been recorded, providing us with a remarkable library of remarkable presenters covering the widest curriculum of the issues that face us today. However, I wanted to introduce new great minds and bring new perspectives, thoughts, and ideas. We're developing TLC Nexus to embrace Gen Z challenges, thoughts, and issues. But I also wanted to inject wisdom and knowledge from further afield too. One of my favorite radio programs used to be Letter from America with the legendary Alistair Cook. His knowledgeable and informed, reassuring voice was always a pleasure to listen to, and I wondered whether we could introduce a new TLC podcast with a learned voice from across the pond. I believe I have succeeded and would like to introduce the wonderful Dr. Isaiah Wilson III, known to everyone as Ike. Ike's credentials are impeccable. He's a polymath, a scholar, and a soldier, and you will be able to access his regular dispatches via our website, headed at the top, podcast The Civic Brief. Enjoy, and let's let Ike introduce to what we are calling dispatches from the USA. Ike, it's over to you.
Now, we meet at a moment when the Atlantic feels quite narrower in distance, as well as wider in perception. For 75 years, the transatlantic relationship rested on a powerful assumption that America would lead, Europe would integrate, and together we would anchor an open order. That assumption is, well, it's rupturing, perhaps no longer valid, collapsing, dissolving, certainly evolving. And evolution requires reinterpretations. That's the purpose of this new relationship. Minding the transatlantic gap is not about alarm, it's not about nostalgia, and it's not about predicting rupture. It's about clarity. Because today, the gap is not only about divergence of political tempo, it's about divergence of interest. America is not withdrawing from the world, just from its commitments to what we might still call Westphalia. It's operating under sustained domestic strain, polarization, budget volatility, institutional fatigue. None of this erases American power. But all these things do shape America's expression. Across the Atlantic, European leaders are responding through strategic autonomy debates, industrial investment, regulatory sovereignty, and risk hedging. That's not betrayal. It is necessary adaptation. But adaptation without accurate interpretation can breed misperception, and misperception widens gaps faster than policy differences do. So, here's what you can expect from these letters. We'll call them dispatches. Every 2 weeks or so, I'm going to aim to provide a few things. First, a sober assessment of what is actually happening here inside American politics, and frankly, more importantly, within and across the American polity. I'm also going to try to provide a distinction between structural change and electoral noise, especially this year as we enter formally next month, the month of March, into the 2026 midterm elections. I'm also going to try to provide a clear explanation or a set of explanations of what all that means. Also, what it does not mean for the alliance and for the United States, particularly going forward, as well as the UK, particularly going forward in terms of our own so-called special relationship. There will be no theatrics in these dispatches, no partisan advocacy. There'll also be no fatalism, just strategic candor. The United States remains powerful. It remains engaged. It remains indispensable in certain domains. Let me emphasize that last part, in certain domains. But its domestic equilibrium is more contested than at any point in the post-Cold War era. Ignoring that reality would be naive. Also, overstating would be irresponsible. So then the task before us is this. It's about recalibration. Bridging the Atlantic and minding the gaps now requires something different than it did back in 1995. It requires synchronization, political synchronization, industrial synchronization, strategic synchronization, and I believe above all, intellectual synchronization. That is what this series aims to support. The transatlantic relationship has survived wars, financial crises, and geopolitical upheaval. It can survive domestic volatility, but only if leaders on both sides understand the dynamics shaping it. That begins with honest interpretation and reinterpretations. From the United States of America with clarity, not alarm. I look forward to these conversations. Thank you for joining me. Cheers.